You're 3 years into your wealth-building journey, and your browser history looks like a crime scene. 37 tabs open. Real estate wholesaling in one. Dividend investing in another. Someone's course on Amazon FBA. A Reddit thread about day trading. A YouTube video promising that dropshipping is still viable if you just find the right niche. And somewhere in the back of your mind is this growing, sickening feeling that you're collecting strategies the way other people collect baseball cards, and getting roughly the same financial return. And then you see it. Another article. Another millionaire interview. And this one made their money flipping domain names in 2003, which is great for them, but completely useless for you in 2025. And you close the tab. And you wonder if maybe the problem isn't that you don't know enough strategies. Maybe the problem is that you know too many. My name is, your name, this is Profit Mindset, and I spent 6 months tracking down the actual first significant money move of 100 verified millionaires. Not their best move. Not their biggest move. Their first move. The thing they did that actually worked before they had money to invest, before they had a network, before they had anything except time and the willingness to do something differently than everyone around them. And here's what broke my brain, I found only 4 patterns. 4. Not 100 unique genius strategies. Not even a dozen. 4 patterns that repeated over and over and over, just wearing slightly different clothes depending on the decade and the industry. And today, I'm going to show you what those 4 patterns actually are, why they're the only ones that mathematically can exist, and how to figure out which one you're actually built for before you waste another 3 years collecting tabs. Here's the thing most people get wrong about millionaires, and they get it wrong in a way that costs them years. You think the secret is finding the right opportunity. The perfect market. The exact strategy that some guru discovered. And you're not wrong that opportunities matter. But you're completely missing the part that actually determines whether you'll ever have a shot at any of them. Because here's what I found when I actually mapped out these 100 stories, the opportunity didn't make the millionaire. The pattern did. And the people who succeeded weren't the ones who found some secret door nobody else could see. They were the ones who matched their situation, their skills, and their tolerance for specific kinds of pain to one of 4 fundamental patterns that have existed since people started trading shells for fish. Let me introduce you to Marcus because Marcus is the guy who made me realize I was asking the wrong questions entirely. Marcus is 32 now. He's got about $2.3 million in net worth, which isn't yacht money, but it's, I don't check my bank account before buying groceries, money, and that's genuinely life-changing. And when I asked Marcus what his first move was, I expected some elaborate story. Some unique insight. Some connection nobody else had. Instead, he told me about the summer he was 23, broke, living with his parents, and he noticed that vintage band t-shirts were selling on eBay for 10x what they cost at thrift stores. So he spent 3 months driving to every Goodwill within 50 miles, buying every Metallica and Nirvana shirt he could find for $3 to $5, and flipping them online for $40 to $80. That's it. That's the whole genius. He found a price difference and he moved inventory from the place where it was cheap to the place where it was expensive. He made about $30,000 that summer. And that $30,000 became the down payment on his first rental property, which became 2 properties, which became the foundation of everything else. And here's the part that made me start the whole tracking project. When I kept digging, I found 31 other people in my sample who did almost the exact same thing. Not with t-shirts. Different products. Different platforms. Different decades, even. But the exact same fundamental pattern: find a price gap, move the thing, capture the spread. Over and over and over. That's pattern 1. And before I show you the other 3, I need you to understand why there are only 4 and why there will probably only ever be 4. The reason isn't mystical. It's not about hustle or manifestation or secret knowledge. It's math. It's economic structure. There are only 4 ways to extract value from a market when you're starting with nothing. You can move things from where they're cheap to where they're expensive. You can do something most people can't or won't do. You can build something that creates value where none existed. Or you can allocate capital better than the market does. That's it. That's the whole menu. Everything else is just those 4 patterns in different costumes. And the people who become millionaires aren't the ones who found a 5th secret option. They're the ones who picked one of the 4, went all in on it, and didn't get distracted trying to do all of them at once. So let's go through them one by one, and I want you to pay attention not to the specific tactics, those change every decade, but to the fundamental shape of each pattern. Because the shape is what matters. Pattern 1, this is Marcus with his t-shirts. This is the 19 people in my sample who started with retail arbitrage. The 8 who did it with cars. The 4 who did it with real estate wholesaling. The fundamental shape, find an inefficiency in a market. Something that's priced wrong in one location, platform, or context, and priced correctly somewhere else. Buy it in the cheap place, sell it in the expensive place, and pocket the difference. This pattern requires almost no capital to start. You can literally start with $100 and a functioning car. But here's what it does require, and this is critical, it requires you to be comfortable with high-frequency, low-margin transactions. You're not making $10,000 per deal. You're making $20 per deal, 500 times. And most people can't tolerate that. Most people do it twice, make $40, and think, this is beneath me. The people who succeed with pattern 1 are the ones who understand that $40 times 500 is $20,000, and $20,000 is the seed capital for everything else. Let me show you the math on Marcus specifically, because this is where it gets real. He bought an average of 12 shirts per thrift store trip. Average purchase price, $4. Average selling price, $55. Minus eBay fees, minus shipping, his net per shirt was about $35. 12 shirts, 3 trips a week, for 14 weeks. That's about 500 shirts. Times $35. That's $17,500 in profit on about $2,000 of capital that he recycled every week. Now, that might not sound like millionaire money. And it's not. But here's what it is, it's proof of pattern recognition. It's proof you can identify value gaps. It's proof you can execute boring, repetitive tasks without quitting. And it's seed capital. Marcus took that $17,500 and used it as a down payment on a $120,000 duplex in 2015. He lived in one unit, rented the other. The rent covered his mortgage. He repeated the arbitrage pattern with furniture and appliances for another year, saved another $20,000, and bought a second property. Same pattern. Different asset class. Scale up. This is the second pattern, and it showed up in 28 of my 100 millionaires. The fundamental shape, get exceptionally good at one specific thing most people can't or won't do, then charge a premium for that skill. This is the guy who learned how to repair diesel engines and became the only person in a 50-mile radius who could fix a specific Caterpillar model. This is the woman who became the go-to expert for Salesforce implementation in the healthcare industry. This is the underwater welder, the tax specialist for e-commerce businesses, the person who knows more about orchid cultivation than anyone in the state. Pattern 2 requires zero capital. But it requires something most people don't want to give, time spent getting good at something specific while everyone else is staying general. Let me tell you about Jennifer because Jennifer's story is the clearest example of pattern 2 I found. Jennifer was 29, working as a general graphic designer for $45,000 a year, drowning in competition from Fiverr and Upwork. And she realized, she was in a race to the bottom. Every year, there were more designers, more AI tools, more templates. Her skill was being commoditized in real time. So she made a decision that everyone told her was stupid. She stopped taking general design work and spent 6 months learning only medical illustration. Specifically, surgical procedure illustrations for medical device companies. For 6 months, she made almost nothing. She was turning down paying work to build a skill nobody was asking her for yet. Her family thought she'd lost her mind. And then she got her first client. A medical device startup that needed FDA submission illustrations. They paid her $8,000 for 2 weeks of work. Then another project. $12,000. Within a year, she was charging $15,000 to $25,000 per project and had more demand than she could handle. She wasn't better at drawing than other designers. She was just the only person in her market who understood both the technical requirements of FDA submissions and could create publication-quality illustrations. She made herself rare. By 31, she'd saved $180,000. She hired 2 junior illustrators, scaled the operation, and eventually sold the specialized firm for $1.4 million to a larger medical marketing agency. Same pattern: specificity creates scarcity, scarcity creates pricing power creates wealth. Pattern 3, this showed up in 24 of my millionaires, and it's the pattern that gets the most press but is actually the hardest to execute from zero. The fundamental shape: create something that didn't exist before and that people will pay for. A product. A service. A company. A piece of software. A physical invention. This is the app developer who built a niche tool. The person who started a mobile detailing business in a town that didn't have one. The guy who created a specialized e-commerce brand. Pattern 3 requires either capital or time, usually both. You're building something before you know if anyone will pay for it. You're taking on execution risk, market risk, and timing risk all at once. But when it works, it scales in a way the other patterns don't. Let me tell you about David, and then I'm going to tell you about the 19 people who tried pattern 3 and failed, because that ratio is important. David was 27, working in property management, and kept hearing the same complaint from landlords: they couldn't efficiently track maintenance requests across multiple properties. The existing software was either too expensive or too complicated. So David spent 11 months and $8,000 of savings building a simple, mobile-first maintenance tracking app specifically for landlords with 2 to 10 properties. He launched it at $29 per month. He got his first customer in month 2. His 10th customer in month 6. By month 14, he had 89 paying customers and $31,000 in annual recurring revenue. He quit his job. Focused on it full-time. 3 years later, he sold the company for $2.1 million to a larger property management software platform. That's the dream, right? Build something, scale it, exit. But here's the part nobody mentions: for every David, I found multiple people who spent a year building something nobody wanted. They had the skills. They had the work ethic. They just misread the market or built 6 months too early or too late. Pattern 3 has the highest failure rate and the highest potential upside. It's a lottery ticket where you get to influence the odds, but you can't control them. Pattern 4, this is the rarest pattern in my sample, only 17 people, but it's the one that scale the fastest once you have capital. The fundamental shape: take capital and allocate it to assets that produce returns better than the market average. Real estate. Index funds. Businesses. Dividend stocks. Anything that generates cash flow or appreciates. Here's the catch, and it's a big one: pattern 4 requires capital to start. You can't allocate what you don't have. Every single person in my sample who succeeded with pattern 4 got their initial capital from pattern 1, 2, or 3 first. They arbitraged or specialized or built until they had $50,000 to $100,000, and then they shifted into allocation mode. This is Sarah, who spent 3 years doing pattern 1, buying liquidation pallets and reselling on Amazon, saved $73,000, and then deployed it into a combination of rental properties and dividend ETFs that now generate $4,200 per month in passive income. Pattern 4 is the endgame. It's where you want to end up. But it's almost never where you can start. Let me tell you about Bryan, because Bryan is the cautionary tale that haunts every productivity subreddit. Bryan was 26 in 2019. He read all the books, listened to all the podcasts, and he decided he was going to be smart. He wasn't going to just pick one pattern. He was going to do all 4 simultaneously. He started an e-commerce store, Pattern 3, Builder. He was flipping furniture on Facebook Marketplace, Pattern 1, Arbitrage. He was trying to build a freelance consulting business, Pattern 2, Specialist. And he was trying to invest in dividend stocks with the $4,000 he had saved, Pattern 4, Allocator. And here's what happened: he did all 4 badly. The e-commerce store never got past 3 sales a month because he couldn't focus on marketing. The furniture flipping made a little money, but he kept running out of storage space because he was too distracted to list things promptly. The consulting business never got a second client because he didn't have time to develop specialized expertise. And his $4,000 in stocks just sat there doing 7% a year, which is fine, but not remotely life-changing. 2 years later, he'd made about $11,000 total across all 4 patterns and burned himself out completely. He quit all of it and went back to his job. Meanwhile, his friend Alex picked Pattern 1, went all in on retail arbitrage, made $43,000 in the same 2 years, and used it as a down payment on a rental property. Same starting point. Same time period. Different focus. Completely different outcome. The lesson Bryan learned, and I need you to sear this into your brain, is that the patterns don't stack well when you're starting from zero. They require different skills, different rhythms, different types of attention. Trying to do all 4 at once isn't diversification. It's dilution. Okay, let's zoom out, because here's the thing I actually want you to understand: these 4 patterns aren't secrets. They're not hidden knowledge. Every single person reading this has heard of arbitrage, specialization, building, and investing. The reason most people don't become millionaires isn't that they don't know the patterns. It's that they can't pick one and stay with it long enough for compound effects to matter. So let me give you the honest framework for figuring out which pattern you're actually built for, because this isn't about which one sounds coolest. It's about which one matches your actual situation and personality. If you have time but no money, and you're comfortable with repetitive execution, Pattern 1. Start finding and moving value. It's not sexy, but it works, and it generates capital faster than anything else when you're at zero. If you have time and you're willing to delay gratification to build rare skills, Pattern 2. Pick something specific, get exceptionally good at it, and charge premium rates. This is the highest probability path to a high income. If you have a high tolerance for risk and you're willing to bet months or years on an unproven idea, Pattern 3. Build something. But go in with your eyes open about the failure rate, and have a backup plan. If you already have capital, and I mean real capital, $50,000 plus, and you want to optimize returns, Pattern 4. But don't fool yourself into thinking you can start here. You can't allocate what you don't have. Here's the thing nobody tells you: most millionaires in my sample didn't stay in one pattern forever. They started with 1 or 2, generated capital, graduated to 3 or 4, and then eventually ended up in Pattern 4 once they had real money to allocate. The patterns are a progression. But you have to start with the one that matches where you actually are, not where you wish you were. And here's the emotional piece, and I need you to really hear this: if you're 3 years into trying to build wealth, and you're exhausted and confused and it feels like nothing's working, the problem probably isn't your work ethic. The problem is your pattern hopping. You're spending 3 months on arbitrage, then you see someone's course on building an agency, so you try that for 2 months, then you hear about dividend investing, so you open a brokerage account, and none of them work because you never stayed anywhere long enough to get good at the actual pattern. The millionaires I studied weren't smarter than you. They weren't luckier. They just picked a pattern that matched their situation and stayed in it for 18 to 36 months without getting distracted. That's it. That's the whole secret. So here's my challenge to you, and it's simpler than you think: pick one pattern. Not the one that sounds the most exciting. The one that actually matches where you are right now. If you're broke with time, start hunting arbitrage opportunities this week. If you've got a skill, pick a narrow niche and go deep. If you've got an idea and savings to burn, build it. If you've got capital, deploy it intelligently. But pick one. Close the other tabs. And give it 18 months of focused execution before you decide it doesn't work. Because here's the truth that the market doesn't want you to internalize: the 4 patterns work. They've always worked. They'll work next year and the year after. The only question is whether you'll pick one and stay with it long enough to see it compound. As for Marcus, the t-shirt guy from the beginning, last I checked, he owns 11 rental properties and just started teaching his 14-year-old daughter pattern 1 using vintage video games. Same pattern. New generation. Still works. Thanks for watching Profit Mindset. If you want me breaking down real wealth patterns like this every week, no fluff, no hype, just the actual structural patterns that create money, that's exactly what this channel is. Subscribe if this hit different than the usual 10 side hustles content. Now go pick your pattern. Just make sure you actually pick one.